Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let me show you the calculation functions in ClipTools. MACMOST and ClipTools are brought to you by a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So ClipTools is an app I created that's basically a clipboard manager but with lots of extra functionality. You could read more about it at MACMOST.com/ClipTools. It's absolutely free and in the Mac App Store. Now back when I started creating ClipTools, one of the very first features I added was a calculation function. This is something I really wanted for myself, the ability to perform calculations and simply paste the result. So normally you can use Spotlight for calculations. You can do Command Space, you can perform a calculation like that, and there's the result. You can even do a Command C to copy and then go into a document and paste the result. But I wanted to skip all those steps and simply bring up an input where I could enter in a calculation, press return, and the result is pasted in. And that's what ClipTools does. So you access ClipTools in the menu bar like this, and there is the paste calculation function. If I use it, you can see it comes up with this dialog here, and I enter in some calculation like 1 plus 2. Then I press OK, and the result is just pasted into wherever I was typing text. And I'm using TextEdit as an example here, but you could be using it in any app where you type text. For instance, here I'm typing an email and I want to do a quick calculation, so I could go here, paste calculation, and then type a calculation like that, and then the result is just pasted there. Now of course the easiest way to use ClipTools is to have a global keyboard shortcut set. So I'm going to go into ClipTools settings, and you can see here the global keyboard shortcut Shift-Command-M is the default for activating the menu. So I can use that along with the keyboard shortcut inside of ClipTools Shift-Command-N equals. So Shift-Command-M brings up the menu, and then I continue to hold Shift and Command and then equals, and now I'm doing a calculation and I can paste the result. I could also go back into settings here and set another global keyboard shortcut, and this one I'm going to do as Shift Command equals and set this to paste calculation. So now I can do it with one keyboard command, Shift Command equals, without ClipTools being activated. It will activate ClipTools and go directly here, and I can use it. Now you can do more than just simple addition, of course. If you bring this up, you can use parentheses. So you can do something like this and get the proper result. You would use an asterisk for multiplication like you're using a programming language, and then you would use a slash for division like that. There are also some functions available. So for instance you can use POW for power, and you could say 9,3 for 9 to the third. There are other common ones, like for instance you can use trigonometric functions like this one. If you go back to MACMOST.com/ClipTools and then you scroll down to calculations, you could see a list here of the functions that are supported. Now in addition to just being able to use it like that, you also have a full history. So now that I've used paste calculation a few times, you can see previous calculations, and there's a history of all the previous calculations, the actual equation and the result. And I can select one of these and just paste the result. Now there's another setting you should know about. So if you go into settings here, there's a checkbox for paste formula with calculation. When you select that, things work a little differently. So now if I were to activate this and do a calculation like that, I get the original text that I typed and then an equal sign and then the result. And this would be true when using the previous calculations as well. Now there's another way you can use calculations in ClipTools. You can select an existing calculation in your text like this, and then instead of going to paste calculation, go to calculate selection. And then it will calculate that selection there and give you the result. It's going to follow the same paste formula with the calculation setting. So if I turn that off and then were to do the same thing here, then it will replace the selected text with the result. And you can use this in other apps as well. So for instance, while writing you could just type out something like this, and then later on go back to it and select it and go calculate selection. Now calculations do a little something special if you use currency. Like for instance in the United States, if you use the $ sign and you put that at the very beginning, so you have something like this, and then you add something else to it. I'll do like that and continue to go. The dollar sign's there and it will recognize that. It will still do the calculation and then it will put the dollar sign there at the beginning. And it works for euro, yen, and pounds as well. Plus, if you include 2 decimal places like that, then it will do the calculation and give you 2 decimal places since it's currency. So here I'm doing it with 2 dollar signs and I actually forgot the last one, but it's not important. It's just the first dollar sign that matters. So now I can do calculate selection and I get the result. Now there's actually a third way this can work. It can work on the clipboard. So I can do something like this and select it and say I copy it. And then let's say I go somewhere else. If I use calculate selection and there's no selection, I don't have any text at all selected, it's instead going to default to using whatever's in the clipboard right now. So it would be what I just copied and I get the result there. Also note that like other functions in ClipTools, if you hold down the Control key, it changes to copy. So instead of actually pasting and in this case replacing that text, it would actually just copy to the clipboard. And now when I paste the result. Now in addition to these basic calculations, there's also something called stacks right here where you can continue to add numbers then perform calculations on a list of numbers that you've added. You can look that up in the documentation and try that out for yourself, and if there's enough interest I'll do a video on using stacks as well. And again, remember you can find out all about this by going to MACMOST.com/ClipTools and there's a whole section on calculations. Hope you find ClipTools useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.